Here are 4 disturbing horror stories to keep you up all night. The Haunted Doll Maker. In a small village, there was a doll maker named Mrs. Grimaldi who was renowned for creating the most beautiful dolls in the world. However, there was something off about her dolls. They seemed to have a life of their own, and their eyes would follow you wherever you went. The villagers whispered that Mrs. Grimaldi had made a deal with the devil, and that her dolls were possessed by evil spirits. One day, a young girl named Lily decided to visit the dollmaker's shop. Mrs. Grimaldi welcomed her in and showed her room filled with dolls of all shapes and sizes. As Lily looked at the dolls, she noticed that they were all staring at her. Suddenly, one of the dolls came to life and attacked her. She managed to escape, but the doll followed her, its eyes blazing with hatred. Lily told the villagers what had happened, but no one believed her. They thought she was just imagining things. However, strange things began happening all over the village. People would wake up to find their dolls missing, or their houses ransacked. The villagers finally realized that Lily was telling the truth, and that Mrs. Grimaldi's dolls were indeed cursed. They decided to burn down the dollmaker's shop, hoping to break the curse. But it was too late. The dolls had already taken control of the village, and no one was safe. To this day, the villagers tell the story of the haunted dollmaker, warning children to never visit the shop on the edge of town. The Curse of Willow Creek. Willow Creek was a quiet and peaceful town, nestled in the heart of rural America, but behind its idyllic facade lurked a dark secret. For years, the town had been plagued by a mysterious curse that claimed the lives of its citizens in the most gruesome ways. No one knew how the curse had started, but it was said that whoever dared to cross the Willow Creek Bridge would never return. Carla and her husband, Mark, had just moved to Willow Creek, and they were looking forward to starting a new life. They didn't know about the curse, and they laughed at the silly rumors they heard from the locals. But soon, they began to experience strange and unsettling events. One night, as they were settling into bed, they heard a faint knocking at their door. Mark went to answer it, but there was no one there. The knocking continued, growing louder and more persistent. Suddenly, the door burst open, and a figure shrouded in darkness stepped into the room. Carla screamed, but the figure disappeared as suddenly as it had appeared. From that moment on, the couple was haunted by strange and frightening occurrences. Doors would slam shut on their own, objects would move by themselves, and they would hear whispers in the dead of night. They tried to leave Willow Creek, but every time they reached the edge of town, they would find themselves back at their front door, as if they had never left. Mark and Carla soon discovered that they were not the only ones affected by the curse. The town's residents were all suffering from the same strange events, and they were all too scared to leave. The couple decided to take matters into their own hands and try to break the curse. They started by investigating the history of Willow Creek, and they soon learned that the town had been built on an ancient burial ground. The Native Americans who had lived there had warned the settlers not to disturb the graves, but they had ignored the warning and built their town anyway. With this knowledge, Mark and Carla set out to find the burial ground. They searched for days, but the site was nowhere to be found. Just when they were about to give up, they stumbled upon a hidden pathway that led them to an overgrown clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a large, stone tomb, and on its surface were etched the words "The Curse of Willow Creek." They approached the tomb and, with great trepidation, pushed open the heavy stone door. Inside, they found a chamber filled with bones and ancient artifacts. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, and on it rested a small, intricately carved box. Mark reached for the box, but as soon as his fingers touched it, he was struck by a powerful energy that sent him flying across the room. Carla tried to help him, but she too was overcome by the energy. When she finally regained consciousness, she found herself lying next to Mark, who was still unconscious. She was about to call for help when she heard a voice that seemed to come from nowhere. "You have disturbed the dead," the voice said. "You have unleashed the curse, and it will not be lifted until the box is returned to its rightful place." Panicking, Carla picked up the box and ran out of the tomb. She stumbled back to town, where she found the residents in a state of chaos. The curse was stronger than ever, and the town was being destroyed by powerful forces. With no other option, Carla made her way back to the tomb and placed the box back on the pedestal. The village of Ravenswood. The village of Ravenswood was always known for its eerie and ominous atmosphere, but nobody ever suspected the true terror that lay hidden within its borders. The villagers lived in constant fear of the mysterious and reclusive family that lived in the large mansion on the outskirts of town. For generations, the residents of Ravenswood whispered tales of strange occurrences and unspeakable horrors associated with the mansion and its residents. But nobody had ever dared to venture near it, for fear of being cursed or possessed by the evil spirits rumored to reside within. That was, until a young and adventurous writer named Jonathan arrived in town, determined to uncover the truth behind the legends of Ravenswood. He was immediately captivated by the mansion and felt an irresistible urge to explore it for himself. Despite the warning of the villagers, Jonathan set out to the mansion, eager to discover the secrets hidden within its walls. But as soon as he stepped inside, he was greeted by a sight that he would never forget. The walls of the mansion were covered in grotesque and unnerving murals, depicting scenes of unspeakable violence and gore. The air was thick with the smell of decay and rot, and Jonathan felt as though he was being watched by unseen eyes. As he cautiously made his way deeper into the mansion, he was confronted by the residents of the house, a family of twisted and deformed beings, with skin as pale as death and eyes that burned with an otherworldly hunger. Jonathan was horrified, but he knew that he couldn't leave the mansion until he had discovered the truth behind the legends of Ravenswood. As he continued his exploration, he discovered that the family were not human, but demons who had taken on human form. They were the source of the evil that had plagued the village for generations, and they were determined to keep their presence a secret. Jonathan's curiosity soon turned to terror as he realized that the demons were not just content with preying on the villagers, but they were also experimenting on them, using their bodies as vessels for their evil spirits. With nowhere else to turn, Jonathan was forced to fight for his life against the demons, using all of his wits and cunning to escape their clutches. But as he made his way back to the entrance of the mansion, he was confronted by the head of the demon family, a being so grotesque and malevolent that it defied description. Jonathan was no match for the demon, and he was soon overpowered and dragged back into the depths of the mansion. But as he lay dying, he was filled with a sense of peace, knowing that a sacrifice would not be in vain. For when he died, his soul became a beacon of light that drew the attention of the villagers, who had grown tired of living in fear. They banded together, using the power of their collective faith to drive the demons back to the underworld and banish them from the village of Ravenswood forever. And so, the mansion remained abandoned and forgotten, a testament to the horror that had once lived within its walls. But even to this day, the villagers still whisper tales of the brave young writer who lost his life uncovering the truth behind the legends of Ravenswood. Blood legacy. The Parisian streets were empty at this hour, save for one lone figure walking towards the old cathedral. Her long, black dress swished against the cobblestones, the hood of her cloak obscuring her face from view. Her name was Amélie, and she was a vampire. She had lived for centuries, watching civilizations come and go, but she was still not used to the loneliness that came with immortality. She missed the warmth of the sun on her skin, the taste of food, and most of all, she missed the love of a human being. But all of that was taken from her the night she was turned. She remembered it vividly, the way her heart had stopped beating as the vampire's fangs pierced her skin, draining the life from her body. And yet, as she lay there dying, she had felt something stir within her, a spark of something that refused to be extinguished. She had risen from the dead, but she was no longer the person she had once been. Her senses were sharpened, her strength was beyond what any mortal could possess, and she was cursed with the thirst for blood that would never be quenched. Amélie sighed, her hand reaching for the door of the cathedral. It was her only refuge from the sun, the only place she felt safe. She pushed open the heavy wooden doors and stepped inside. The the musty smell of incense and old stone filling her nostrils. She made her way to the back of the church, where she had taken up residence. She had lived in this cathedral for many years now, keeping to herself, only coming out at night to hunt for food. But lately, she had been restless. She felt like she was missing something, like there was a purpose to her existence that she had yet to discover. She sat down on the stone bench, her eyes closed as she tried to quiet the voices in her head. She had always been able to hear the thoughts of others, a gift from her Maker, but lately they had grown louder, more insistent. She opened her eyes, her gaze landing on the statue of the Virgin Mary. Suddenly, she heard a voice, clear as day, in her mind. "Seek me out, Amélie. I have been waiting for you." She sat there for a moment, stunned. No one had ever been able to communicate with her telepathically before. She stood up, her heart pounding as she made her way towards the altar. And there, she saw it. A small piece of parchment, with her name written in flowing script. She picked it up, her hands shaking as she read the words written there. "Meet me in the catacombs. I have something to show you." Amélie didn't hesitate. She knew she had to follow this mysterious voice, to discover what it was that had been waiting for her for so long. She made her way to the entrance of the catacombs, the musty smell of death filling her nostrils. She descended the staircase, her steps echoing in the silence. At the bottom of the stairs, she saw a figure waiting for her, shrouded in shadows. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice echoing off the walls. The figure stepped forward, revealing itself to be a woman, dressed in black robes. Her eyes were piercing blue, her hair was white as snow. "I am Lillian," she said, "and I have been waiting for you, Amélie." That was it for now. Please like and subscribe for more.